The code, the universe, vast and incomprehensible, holds countless secrets. Among them, one ancient rule has remained undisturbed for eons, passed quietly between the stars: never harm a human. This simple yet profound law has been enforced by powers far older than any civilization could fathom, woven into the very fabric of existence. For millennia, no species dared to break it, and no one knew why. It was a mystery that few questioned, but all respected. Humanity, a relatively fragile species, was an enigma to the greater galactic community. Earth, once thought insignificant, had been quietly observed from the edges of space. Yet, for reasons no one fully understood, humanity was never disturbed. Their progress, their survival, even their aggression, all seemed to be protected by an unseen force. This was not a protection of technology or military might, but something much deeper. Something almost sacred. The Tsar, a highly advanced alien species, had been studying the galactic balance for centuries. They had seen civilizations rise and fall, witnessed the destruction of worlds and the birth of stars. But one mystery lingered: humanity. Despite their relative youth and vulnerability, humans were consistently shielded from the universe's greater threats. The Tsar could not ignore this anomaly. Driven by curiosity and a thirst for knowledge, the Tsar decided to delve deeper into the question: why were humans untouchable? They began their studies in secret, far from the eyes of the Galactic Council. What they uncovered was both fascinating and terrifying. There was a law, a rule, woven into the very essence of the universe, a law that forbade anyone from harming a human. But why? The Tsar theorized that humanity was merely lucky, that their protection was nothing more than a coincidence, a statistical anomaly in the grand scale of the cosmos. They believed that with their superior intellect and technology, they could finally uncover the truth. Perhaps the law was just an ancient superstition, a relic from a time long past. Yet, as the Tsar's investigation deepened, they began to sense something far more powerful at work, something that extended beyond their understanding of physics, time, and space. This law was not just a guideline, it was a cosmic decree, enforced by a force beyond the comprehension of any living being. And this force was not something they could ignore. Their obsession with the mystery of humanity grew. The Tsar, relentless and methodical, began to formulate a plan. They would test the boundaries of the code. They would harm a human. It was a reckless decision, but one driven by the need to understand. They thought that if they broke the law, they could discover the truth about humanity's strange and inexplicable protection. They were confident that nothing would happen. After all, the universe was vast, and they believed their knowledge and power made them immune to its mysteries. But they were wrong. The Tsar had been carefully observing humanity for years, their intricate surveillance network monitoring every moment of human progress. From the chaotic streets of bustling cities to the quiet hum of research labs, they had seen it all. The humans were curious, intelligent, and resourceful, but also fragile. It seemed impossible that such a species could be immune to the vast powers of the galaxy. And yet, the law had protected them for centuries. The Tsar were no strangers to breaking boundaries. They had engineered star systems, manipulated gravitational forces, and even altered the flow of time itself. Their species had a history of defying the impossible, of breaking through limits that seemed insurmountable. And now, they faced the ultimate challenge, the one law that even the mightiest of beings respected: never harm a human. The Tsar believed that the law was simply a superstition, a relic of some long-forgotten era when humans were perceived as having an intrinsic value. To them, it was nothing more than an unfounded belief that they would shatter once and for all. If they could prove that humanity was not special, not protected, then the entire galactic order could be rewritten. They would be able to exploit this newfound knowledge to establish themselves as the ultimate rulers of the galaxy. The truth, they thought, would be theirs for the taking. The operative selected for this mission was a Tsar named Kalthor, known for his cold logic and unflinching obedience. Kalthor had spent his life studying the intricacies of galactic civilizations. and had always prided himself on his ability to solve mysteries. He was dispatched with one clear objective: find a human, harm them, and observe what happens. The plan was deceptively simple. Calthor would choose a human at random, a vulnerable individual in a remote location, far from the prying eyes of Earth's governments. It had to be someone insignificant, someone whose disappearance would go unnoticed. Calthor had no interest in making it personal. It was all about the experiment. When Calthor arrived on Earth, he marveled at the strangeness of it all. The planet was vibrant with life, its ecosystems a chaotic dance of survival and growth. Yet, amidst the bustling population, there were those who seemed expendable, individuals who lived in the shadows, ignored by the rest of humanity. This was who Calthor chose. He found his target, a lone traveler in a desolate region, far from civilization, a person whom no one would miss. The moment the operative struck, the universe began to stir. Calthor's technology allowed him to strike quickly and decisively. He reached out with a simple gesture, using a concealed weapon to incapacitate the human. But as the blade touched the skin of the unsuspecting victim, something extraordinary happened. A pulse of energy rippled through the very fabric of space and time, a wave that surged outward from the point of contact. Calthor was immediately overwhelmed by a strange sensation, a force that twisted his perception of reality. His surroundings seemed to warp, the air vibrating with a frequency he had never encountered. Time slowed. The stars in the sky flickered, as if reacting to the violation. Calthor's mind was bombarded with vivid, disjointed visions, flashes of distant galaxies, alien landscapes, and ancient celestial bodies. But more than that, there was a sensation of being watched, a presence that seemed to permeate everything. It was as though the universe itself had been disturbed, and it was responding to this trespass. Confused and disoriented, Calthor tried to regain control, but it was no use. The very energy of the event was beyond his comprehension. In that moment, he realized that his simple experiment had triggered something far greater than he could have imagined. This was no ordinary law. This was an ancient force that protected humanity, one that extended far beyond the reach of his technological prowess. And then, in an instant, Calthor was gone. He felt himself being pulled away, his body and mind ripped, from the earth as though by an invisible hand. The last thing he saw before he was torn from the planet was the human he had harmed, their eyes wide open in fear, but seemingly untouched by the violence. The law had been broken, and now the universe had begun its judgment. The wrath of the universe. In an instant, Calthor's physical form was gone. Pulled away from Earth, he found himself adrift in an endless void. The familiar landscape, the desert, the victim, everything vanished. Nothing remained but an empty, formless expanse. He felt weightless, lost in a space where time and direction held no meaning. His mind began to unravel as he tried to comprehend what had happened. This place wasn't like anything he had ever studied. There were no stars, no light, no sound, only the crushing silence of a vast emptiness. Then a presence, a force beyond anything Calthor had ever encountered, settled over him. It was a presence not of matter or energy, but something far more profound. It was as if the very fabric of the universe itself had turned its attention to him. Calthor's advanced intellect, his years of study, were no help here. This was something beyond technology, beyond science. The universe had responded, and it was not a response he could understand. His senses were overloaded with visions, images of ancient galaxies, civilizations long dead, and stars collapsing into themselves. But one image stood out: humanity, small and fragile, but somehow central to the balance of everything. He began to realize the truth. Humans were not just protected for some arbitrary reason. They were crucial, their existence tied to the very stability of the universe itself. The law that protected them wasn't just an ancient tradition or a superstition. It was a fundamental rule, woven into the fabric of reality. Harm a human, and the consequences reached far beyond what any civilization could imagine. As the weight of this knowledge pressed down on him, Calthor felt himself being drawn deeper into the void. The force that had responded to his violation was not just a passive observer. It was the law itself, and it was relentless. He saw visions of other species that had broken this law in the past. Planets consumed by chaos, civilizations erased, entire species wiped out. And then Calthor saw his own fate. The universe had no mercy for those who dared disturb its balance. His form began to dissolve, his existence unraveling at the molecular level. He was no longer in control. He wasn't even truly alive anymore. He had become part of the emptiness, lost to time and space. The last thing Calthor experienced was the crushing realization of his mistake. The universe had no room for those who defied its laws, no tolerance for those who threatened the delicate balance of existence. And with that, Calthor was lost, his being torn from the fabric of reality, condemned to an eternity of isolation, erased from the history of the cosmos. The return of the unknown. For what seemed like an eternity, Calthor's consciousness drifted through the void, lost to time and space. His physical form had long since been erased, and his mind was no more than an echo within the fabric of the universe. He could feel the pull of the void, a force that sucked him deeper into the abyss where the boundaries of reality ceased to exist. There was no up, no down, only the endless stretch of nothingness. And then, as suddenly as it had all begun, there was a shift. The pull of the void ceased, and Calthor's fragmented consciousness felt a surge of energy, something familiar, yet utterly alien. It was as if the universe itself was remaking him, reshaping him into something new. But what he was becoming, he could not understand. The familiar patterns of thought, once sharp and clear, were now muddled and disjointed. For the first time in what felt like eons, Calthor felt a sense of presence, another mind, another force. It was not the same as the vast intelligence he had encountered earlier. This presence was different, more direct, more personal. It seemed to watch him, waiting. The void itself felt alive, as if it were responding to the disturbance his existence had caused. Calthor struggled to piece together his thoughts, his shattered mind struggling against the overwhelming force. He had been cast into nothingness, erased from time and space, but now something was pulling him back. Something that had been set in motion the moment he had violated the law. His actions had not gone unnoticed, nor had they been left without consequence. As Calthor began to regain his fragmented consciousness, he sensed the presence growing stronger. It was not something he could see, but he could feel it, like a weight pressing down on him. His awareness expanded, and he felt the vastness of the cosmos shift around him. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend in response to his existence, and Calthor knew that he was no longer in control. He felt himself being drawn towards something ancient, something far older than anything that Zur had ever encountered. The laws of the universe, the forces that governed everything, had not only reacted to his violation, they were now actively guiding him, forcing him back into the fold of existence. As Calthor's form began to take shape again, he was overwhelmed by the sheer scale of what had happened. The universe had not simply punished him, it had transformed him. He was no longer just a Zur operative, he was something else entirely, something caught between the realms of the living and the cosmic forces that governed reality. And then, he understood. This was no mere punishment. The universe had cast him into a new role. His actions had triggered something far larger than a simple consequence. He had become a part of the very system he had once sought to control. The law that had protected humanity, the law that had forbidden harm to a single human, was no longer a distant rule to be broken. It was an undeniable force, one that could no longer be ignored or manipulated. Calthor was now bound to it. He could feel it. This new existence was a prison, but it was also a responsibility. He was now a part of the delicate web that held the universe together, a force that could not be escaped. He had been made a witness to the true power of the cosmos, a part of the system that ensured balance. But with this power came a terrible awareness. The law was not just a protection for humanity, it was a safeguard for the entire universe. Calthor was no longer free. He was bound by the consequences of his own actions, condemned to a fate far beyond his understanding. The universe had judged him, and now it would never let him forget the price of his defiance. The price of defiance, Calthor's new existence, was a prison. He had once been a tactician, an intellect far beyond most species. Now, he was nothing more than a broken fragment, bound to the very law he had violated. The cosmos that had once seemed vast and full of potential was now an oppressive weight, watching over him with an unyielding presence. His consciousness, still sharp, felt the heavy pull of the law. The universe had not merely punished him, it had reshaped him, and now he was part of something much greater than himself. He had disrupted the balance, and the price of that disruption was steep. Then, Calthor felt it again. A disturbance, a shift in the void. The force that had pulled him into this existence was not alone. The enforcers had arrived. These beings, born of the universe's deepest laws, were not physical creatures. They were the embodiment of cosmic justice, and Calthor knew they had come for him. His mind raced, but there was no escape. No plea for mercy could save him now. The enforcers moved without sound, their presence overwhelming. They surrounded him, and Calthor felt himself being drawn into their power. The judgment was swift and certain. His form, his consciousness, began to disintegrate. This time, there would be no return. As his essence unraveled, Calthor realized the full cost of his actions. This was not just the end of a life, it was the erasure of his very being from the universe. The law had spoken, and he had paid the price. There was no coming back. His existence would be forgotten, a shadow lost in the cosmos. The price had been paid.